Hello everyone, I'm Don Stacy. I'm going to read another story, perhaps two from my collection, Tales of the Bizzare and Unnatural. And I'd like to welcome a new subscriber. I think I'm up to 7 subscribers now. So, okay. The next one is titled An Address to the Assembly. The spate of zombie films, which began during the latter half of the 20th century, turned out to be far more prescient than anyone could have guessed. But of course, the recent accumulation of corpses, prolific and putrefying, have shown no signs of reanimation. They remain quite immobile until disposal teams clad in protective suits arrive to haul away the dead bodies. People are now dying at a rate never seen before in human history. As a result, the populations of every country in the world have succumbed to acute panic. Attempts to flee the cities in the hope of escaping random exposure from an infected person in a crowd or on a bus have proved completely futile. The uncontrolled automobile traffic would invariably bottleneck following a blown tire, a steaming radiator, or an empty gas tank. Everyone now knows the cities around the world have become vast death traps. Not a very promising situation. How do people come up with these nightmarish visions anyway? We've been inundated with them, well, practically all my life anyway, virtually. They started producing these science fiction films, oh gosh, circa 1950. They were just churning them out, B movies and all that. Steve McQueen was in a famous B movie entitled The Blob. I think that was one of his first films. Anyway. I'm filming.
What do you mean?
I'm using the camera to film.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're a phone guy and you can call Angela.
I know. See you later. Well, as you can see, these are strictly informal sessions. Anyway. All right, Paul Frazier is a geneticist who has foreseen this catastrophe by at least 5 years. He has been working feverishly 17, 18 hours a day at his private company's principal facility, concealed from public knowledge in a remote mountain location 50 miles outside of Salt Lake City, which has become one of the safest cities in the country owing to its considerable population of non-smokers. During the rise of the epidemic, cigarette smokers were the first to contract the illness and die. Frazier and the rest of his team of microbiologists and bioengineers have been struggling to defeat the new deadly disease caused by a completely drug-resistant bacterium which contains a DNA segment known as MCR-1. They have been attempting to create a virus which would attack the bacterium and destroy it, and most importantly, remain biologically inactive afterwards, posing no threat to human beings. His team has already created a series of viruses, each having been able to kill the bacterium, but these same viruses also prove rather deadly to the test animals, from mice to monkeys. So their researches continue at a manic pace, leaving, as it were, no stone unturned. When news of the alarming and solemn estimation that 4/5 of the human race have now perished was broadcast to the Utah facility from one of the few government transmission centers still functional, Frazier requested that everyone meet at the auditorium where he would give a crucial address. when news of the alarming and we already got that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for setting aside your important work to attend this meeting. For those of you who may not have already heard, the Center for Disease Control has just estimated that 4/5 of the world's population has been wiped out from this insidious disease. They also project that within a month, we human beings face extinction. That is a medical and mathematical certainty. Now, despite our best efforts, we have been unable to produce a new virus that is effective in killing the bacterium, but otherwise remains relatively inert. Not one of the test animals has yet to survive, and time is running out. But there is one alternative course we have not yet explored, and I believe must explore, a course of research which will necessarily alter the human genome. Immediately, shouts of protest arose from the audience. "We have never allowed such procedures. Impossible! The gravest of mortal transgressions," and so on. Please, everyone, hear me out. In our present biological state, we face certain extinction. And yes, we also know how to circumvent this terrible conclusion to history. But there is indeed considerable risk. "You must be out of your mind, Dr. Fraser," someone shouts from the audience. "Surely you're not proposing—" "That's precisely what I'm proposing. We must alter the human genome to such an extent that we will no longer be harmed by the bacterium. A genetic immunity. But we've already worked on that approach. Once the new genetic code for the human sperm and ovum was finally stabilized, and the growth of the organism artificially accelerated so that we could evaluate a physically mature adult for its biological and psychological properties. We observed only one hideous deformity after another, all of them quite immune to the deadly bacterium, but no longer even recognizable as human beings. The reptilian features were far too pronounced. "Decidedly so," someone else shouts. Fraser holds up his hands, petitioning for calm. People, we must act or perish outright. We have little time left to preserve what we can of the human being. Think of it as an enormous surge that will take place in human evolution. Our struggle for existence throughout time has led us to this moment, to decide whether we're going to give up and die, or instead live on in a radically altered form. There is no other choice. If we can succeed in our work to introduce the genetic information into our bodies, we will be protected from the bacterium. But so far, our understanding and knowledge of this procedure yields a new organic form that Darwin himself would have found unclassifiable. "A grotesque aberration! We must not sacrifice humanity to save humanity," still another member of the audience shouts. "Pointless critique," Fraser now shouts in return. "I have brought with me our most recent iteration of the genetic alteration I've been proposing." He then turns toward the left wing of the stage and says, "Banquo, step on out here, won't you?" Crowd follows silent and hushed. Murmurs ripple through the rows in the auditorium, then a collective gasp. The creature strides out. Its skin is like that of an alligator. Its eyes roam over the faces of those in the audience, the expression on his face oddly similar to that of Dr. Fraser's, a sort of anxious repose. Not a fearful look, but rather one of blunt challenge against the world. "You may notice," Fraser resumed speaking, "that Banquo and I have an odd similarity to one another. Various ideas or social environments will affect us in exactly the same way. Genetically speaking, he's my cousin." The venerable-looking Dr. William Adams, head of research emeritus, rises from his seat. "Dr. Fraser, you have defied the conscience of scientists everywhere The unanimous will, save one in this unseemly creation of yours. I am quite sure that Bangor has been artificially invested with all of your life experiences, along with a fourth or an eighth of your DNA. This is scandalous, sir. Scandalous! Now Bangor speaks. His voice rises and rolls out of the auditorium in a way that English has never been spoken before. You can only see me now as an abomination, a being God never intended to exist. But who are we to second-guess the processes of creation, the mysteries of birth and death? Time itself has a strange way of compelling things into existence or into new forms of being. The epidemic and all of your courageous work to combat it is one of those processes, just as I am the result of another one of those same processes. If you have descendants, they will not resemble you very much apart from facial expressions. They will look like me and be nearly impervious to disease. The choice is up to you. For now, you must vote. All right. Well. Well, happy 4th of July, everyone. Here in Spokane, we had a rainstorm today, earlier. Which, had I known, I should have checked the weather report. I wouldn't have bothered to water the lawn and the bushes, but I did that early when there was still some sunshine. Much to my surprise, we had a downpour later on. But that's nature for you. Sometimes it's rather unpredictable. Just as these new COVID variants are rather unpredictable. And I don't like mentioning it, but during the summer, we can remain relatively carefree in relation to this pandemic that is not over, by the way. It's not over. That virus is now permanently in the ecosystem, and it will circulate forever, just like the flu bugs, which alter every year, as we all know. The new season of flu, what is it this time? Avian flu, swine flu, it can come from any animal. We're all vertebrate animals, including human beings, and these things can jump from one species to another, and we know it. Oh, do we ever know it? So, the question is, in my mind, what is going on with these conservative judges in the Supreme Court? I mean, they've with these sweeping decisions they've made in the last week, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them, all at once, practically. They've rolled out the red carpet back to the flippin' 19th century. I mean, laissez-faire capitalism, for example. Oh, they love that. Just let the companies run amok, do whatever they like. Let them pipe out their goddamn sewage into the rivers and contaminate the waters. Isn't that what they used to do in the 50s and early 60s until President Nixon signed the Clean Water Act and the Environmental Protection Agency was created? That was in 1972, roughly. Now the noble gentlemen and gentlewomen on the Supreme Court have decided that, oh no, the Environmental Protection Agency can't create these measures to reduce emissions into the water, into the air. Oh no, no. Every little detail must now be hammered out in Congress, according to the Supreme Court. What are they thinking? Do they not even consider the repercussions of these decisions that they're handing down that will... They live in a world of their own, I swear to God. They live in a conceptual world and common, ordinary life that most of us experience doesn't even touch them. They don't even come close to experiencing what most ordinary Americans experience. They thrust their decision down on us and throw open the floodgates for corporate America to do whatever they like. That's bull. That's bull.